Welcome to Muskegon Rising, a community service project of the Muskegon Rotary Club. Our purpose is to create lasting positive change. We've been doing that here since 1916. So, let's get started.
Hello, I'm Nancy Crandall, a Muskegon Rotarian, and I'm joined today for this podcast by Judy Hayner, who is also a Rotarian and is project director for the Muskegon City Public Art Initiative. Welcome, Judy, and thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun to be able to talk about art.
Yes, I noticed you like to do that.
I do.
Tell us how this whole thing got started.
The Muskegon City Public Art Initiative was not my idea. It was the idea of a gentleman who had been in Muskegon in the late 70s and early 80s. Maybe late 80s, early 90s. There you go. Patrick O'Leary, and a lot of people may know who he is. Anyway, he called me up one day. I had retired, and he called me up, and he did not say hello. He said, "What are you doing with your time?"
Good question for a retiree.
I know. Anyway, that's when we talked about, this was his idea. He was interested in helping to support more public art for Muskegon, for the city of Muskegon, believing that really could make a difference. It could help define place and give people maybe more sense of pride and some history. Patrick is really interested in history as well as art, and he was interested in projects that might help illuminate some history with the art projects. So we talked about it, and so that's what he wanted. And when we talked about it, what I wanted to do monumental work, very large-scale work, so that permanent, large-scale, it lives here, once we do it. So between the two of us, that's what we came up with, and he agreed to to start the underwriting for 10 projects. We agreed we were doing 10 projects, primarily for the city of Muskegon, although we also, at that time, talked about having something for the Heights, but most of them for the city of Muskegon, and that he would put in $25,000 as a starter for each project.
For each project?
For each project. Wow, so very generous.
Yes.
And his interest was connecting history with the art, that we could somehow illuminate some kind of history. So that's how it started, and we started in July of 2018, and he said, we'll just do one project a year. And I remember saying, Patrick, I'm 70. I don't think that makes sense. Maybe we could do 2 a year. Anyway, so we've cut it in the middle. We are installing project number 8 and 9 this summer and just starting the planning for the last one.
And who comes up with the ideas for the projects or decides what it's going to be?
I think Patrick and I did a lot of talking, and at the beginning, I spent a lot of time literally. The whole thing actually starts with location, which I'm not sure I realized until I got into it. It's like, okay, wait, we got to figure out where we might put things. So spent a lot of time just trying to identify possible sites. And then I report to the Downtown Arts Committee, which you're familiar with. And that started in 2005 by Pat Johnson at the Community Foundation as Muskegon was being redeveloped. And in 2005, we had sand. That's all we had. But as it was being redeveloped, she wanted to make sure that there was an understanding that art needed to be part of it. So the Downtown Arts Committee has been around since 2005, and I report to them. So some of the ideas have come from the Downtown Arts Committee.
I see.
Some of them have been brought to me by the city where they've had a location that they'd like to do something. So it's been a variety of things that has instigated each project.
And then you decide on a project. How do you find the artists for the project?
And we've done that a few different ways. We have for several of the projects, we actually put out an RFP. And so it's a matter of, when I'm doing it, trying to identify artists that are working in whatever medium we're thinking that we might like, and that have done public art and have done large-scale art. So we've done an invitational RFP process where I send it to a selected group of artists to submit their ideas. We've also done just an open call. The railroad bridges, when that happened, that was basically an open call. And we started with a list of artists to begin with, and then as it became more public, we just put it out there for anybody. What was interesting about that is everybody thought, oh, I want to do it. And then when they got the the specs of what the job really was. It was surprising how many people I did not hear from again. That was a challenging project in particular.
I bet it was, but I can understand how
right.
Not too many would actually be willing to do it.
Right.
And who decides then who the artists will be?
Primarily the Downtown Arts Committee. I take everything back to them. But we've had projects where we've had an affiliated group. For example, the Bridges involved a committee of 3 different cities, Norton Shores, the Heights, and Muskegon, because of the bridge placement. So the city leadership, we brought those people together, and they got to help choose the finalists in that particular project. And then ultimately the public decided. We did a voting thing through the libraries. So it happens different ways. So sometimes it's the Downtown Arts Committee, sometimes it's that kind of committee. The One Drop, which is at the Convention Center, was actually a project that we did jointly with the Women's Division of the Chamber of Commerce. Right. And so they were very instrumental in helping to select the artist.
I love that drop. It's just every time I go by there, I look at it and think, what a good thing that is.
It really is such a central symbol to who we are, I think.
What about the preservation of these art pieces?
Each of the pieces belong to wherever we've installed them. For example, Moxie was our very first project.
Yes.
And that came about because of just talking with the director of the Lakeshore Museum Center, and they're interested in doing something that might, really attract people to the site. And then one of their staff members had come across an artist that was doing this wildlife type art, and she had said something to her boss, like, I wish we could do that. And then her boss said something to me, and it's like, okay, why not? Why not figure out how to do that?
Exactly.
But for example, so Moxie now belongs to the Lakeshore Museum Center, and they are responsible for the maintenance. The city will pick up the maintenance and the oversight of the other sites that are on their property. Heritage Landing belongs to the county, so it depends on who.
Oh, I see.
And as we finish each project, the Community Foundation gives a deed of gift to the property owner, and it's all been on public property so far.
There have been some controversies as you've gone through this process.
Everybody has opinions about art, and I understand that. I understand that. Have we had a lot of controversy?
The one that came to mind was the thing about the elephant.
Oh, the one that
the one that didn't make it. Yeah.
Yeah, there have been some controversies. That one, it's hard to even talk about that. I'm really very sad about that. That would have been a phenomenal work of art for Muskegon, and would have highlighted that particular story of Buster Keaton and his life in Muskegon. So we haven't really had too much, I don't think. I think that particular one is the only one that we've had to just set aside. I mean, when somebody talks about animal cruelty, as I've tried to say, I got nothing. I got no words to deal with that. I don't even know how to address that. So,
are the pieces pretty well accepted each time? And do you have people who, as you say, everybody has their own opinion about art?
Everybody has an opinion, and we have a professional snark class. I probably shouldn't say that, but I think we do. We have a group.
That's what I was thinking.
Of people that just like to take pot shots at things, and you just have to pretty much ignore that.
Okay.
That was starting to happen when we put out some information about the portal, which is our 9th project that we're installing this summer. And I was really kind of shocked about some of the comments, because it's the same people that come at me or you at the art museum. Why don't you use local artists? I'm using one of the best local artists we have.
Exactly.
And yet they were going to be slapping him upside the head. It's like, what? So, we're always going to have people that want to complain for sport, and there's nothing I can do about that.
Well, tell us a little about the portal. I'm excited about that one.
The portal is amazing. That is going to be a 42-foot sculpture, which means it's over 4 stories tall.
I think people don't have an idea of how big this thing is.
I know. For some reason last night, and I don't know why, I was dreaming about it all night long. I don't know why 42. I don't know what I was trying to work out. Anyway, 42-foot circle of Corten steel, which will be lit on the inside, dusk to dawn, and it will be located on the berm area between Shoreline Drive and the Shoreline Hotel. It's going to be gorgeous. And we're working with it's a local artist, Lee Brown. who is one of the, when people want to talk about local artists, obviously I know the local artist community quite well. We do not have a lot of artists that do monumentally scaled work. In fact, basically two, and I've worked with both of them. Ari Norris is the artist that did the sculpture in the Heights and had done the Bugle Boy sculpture earlier in Muskegon. Yes. And then Lee Brown is the other one that I knew had the capacity to do something of a large scale. He's worked with engineers. He understands the engineering process. He understands materials and design. And so it's his concept, and then he's working with versatile fabrication, which means it's being made. It was conceived, designed by a Muskegon artist, and being fabricated by a Muskegon shop. And I can't tell you how proud those guys are of the work they're doing. It's really exciting. So we hope to install that in August. I'm pretty sure that will be in by the 16th of August, I think.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah. Has Lee done something this big in the past?
Yes, Lee had done the, for Burning Foot Festival, they have that, apparently it's a hop, but it's, 50 feet tall, and it has fire coming out of it. And he's the one that made that. Right.
I didn't realize that.
Whatever that is, he did it.
That's fun.
Yeah.
One of the problems, it's not a problem, I guess, but one of the issues that I have seen over the years as these projects have been done is getting the word out to people about what they are, why they're there, who the artist is. And I know that you've written some wonderful articles that I've seen on Facebook about all this. It's hard without a daily newspaper anymore that covers very much locally.
Right.
How do you get information out to people about these?
So and this didn't start now. This was, again, a few years ago through the Downtown Arts Committee. We started working with Tom Van Bruggen, who's with the county GIS system, on developing a map that could live on the city website and the county website and the art museum website. And it would be a place, then we would do QR codes, and I think we will do this now. We will do QR codes applied to all 65 works of art. Muskegon has a remarkable...
65?
It's crazy. We have a huge collection of public art starting from 1898, late 1800s to this year. And yes, we have about 60 plus pieces in the public arena. So I just met with him recently. We're going to develop a QR system that we can put some kind of thing on all the pieces. And then that will take you to that map, and it will take you to the information about the piece.
Oh, good.
The projects that I've done with the Muskegon City Public Art Initiative, we have signage at every site. And sometimes a friend or an artist will say, well, you really don't need that. It's like, yep, I do need that.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to read it. I don't care if they read it. It's here. If they want to read it, they can read it, and the information's in front of them. So we do have signage on our projects, explaining what the project, the artist, the donors, that kind of thing.
Well, tell us a little about Marshfield.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so excited about this. It's so funny. I am the least athletic person you know. I don't have an athletic bone in my body. But I'm a pretty good manager, and I can I appreciate the history. Marshfield is a remarkable story. Started in 1916 when apparently Rotary started.
That's right.
That was a busy year. It's just such an amazing story. So there had been professional ball in Muskegon before that, starting probably in the late 1880s. So from that point forward, there were teams, there were leagues, there were various fields kind of in and around town. But at some point, they wanted to get into what was considered the Central League, which was the Midwest League of paid ball players, and felt like they had to have a better field situation. And one of the fields had already been taken over for housing. And anyway, Charles Marsh got involved with the local baseball scene starting in 1912. He was president of the whatever league thing was happening then. And in February of 1916, he decided to buy 4 city blocks at Peck and Laketon. So there's 4 blocks. They're wooded. They have some buildings on them. And they have Clinton Street through the middle of them. And in the first week of May, they played the first game on Marshfield.
My goodness.
I don't even understand how that was possible.
Did that? Yeah.
I mean, was the whole grandstand built? Of course not. But they had a game, and they had a big game with a parade. And I mean, I love the stories of Muskegon, and Muskegon really had a thing for parades. I could tell you the whole story about when the McKinley sculpture was dedicated in 1902, I think. They had a huge parade, and they had souvenirs. The county has a pin that was handed out during that parade. It's really kind of cool. Anyway, there was a big parade for Marshfield, and there was a game, like in less than 3 months. And when Charles March, a few years after that, he deeded the Marshfield to the city permanently as a baseball field. He also required that it have a playground and a picnic area for the community on it, which it does. And when he deeded it, it's like, as long as this is what it is, that's great. And if it's ever used for anything other than this, it reverts back to the Marsh Company, the C.W. Marsh Company, which still exists today.
Right. Yeah.
So it's been baseball since 1916. All kinds of variations on a theme for that. There have been, local teams. There have been professional teams. Marshfield was the farm club at different times. New York Yankees, the Detroit Tigers, and the Chicago White Sox. So there was even that part of it. And we've had some pretty famous players come through Marshfield. And so we're going to try to highlight that story on a mural that will face Laketon, a very large 36-foot mural. And then we're also doing a series of portraits for the other parts of the buildings that look like baseball cards of some of the more famous people that have been involved with Marshfield.
So the mural facing Laketon, and it's on what?
So it's Marshfield has this wonderfully large garage with this flat wall that faces Laketon.
Okay.
So it's Laketon and Peck.
Yeah, I was trying to picture
right.
what the mural will be painted on.
Right. The mural will actually be what I've done with our murals, except for the bridges, but the Massey mural downtown, the historic murals downtown, they're painted on aluminum composite panels, and then they're attached, which means they could be moved if they have to be.
Right.
So we won't paint on the building. We will be painting on ACM panels.
And when is this
It will be installed the week, the artist will be in town July 12th. They will install it the morning of the 13th, and we will dedicate it right before a game at 6 o'clock on July 13th, and everybody's invited to come.
And the Clippers are still playing at that time?
Yeah. There's a game that night at 7:05.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
it should be fun.
I do recommend that, and I have to laugh at myself. I think TV has enhanced football. I'm not sure it enhanced baseball.
Yeah.
And so now as I sit there, it's like, oh yeah, just being here and hearing that and being right there where the action really is a unique experience, and people should enjoy Marshfield. It's really quite fun.
Oh, I think they will.
And they play probably altogether about 100 games a year on that field. Marshfield is the home field for the Big Reds. It's the home field for the Muskegon Clippers, which is a collegiate team that's made up of teams throughout the Midwest, Michigan, Ohio, one other place, I think. So that's who's playing there. In an organized fashion.
That's terrific.
So
how did you get involved in this? You said a phone call from Patrick.
A phone call.
Why did he call you? What is a bit about your background?
Well, when I retired from the Art Museum, I had been the director for just about 15 years of the Muskegon Museum of Art. And I had gotten to know Patrick over the years. Patrick is just such a good, even though he left Muskegon a long time ago, he left part of his heart here. And he has been a supporter of the Art Museum, a very generous supporter of the Art Museum, a generous supporter of the Irish Festival, and other things in Muskegon that he does sometimes with recognition and sometimes just quietly. So Muskegon he got bit by the Muskegon bug. Now, usually people come back when they get bit by that. So I don't think we're going to get him to come back and live here, but well,
he's done the next best thing.
Yeah, he certainly has.
So before your 15 years at the Art Museum, you had a different role in this community.
I did. I was assistant superintendent for Muskegon Public Schools for 9 years before the Art Museum. And at that time, Muskegon Public Schools governed and owned both the public library, Hackley Public Library, and the Art Museum. And then everybody says, well, why is that? Well, because they built it. That's why. They made the decision to build an art museum. So as assistant superintendent, both the library director and the art museum director reported to me. So I had 9 years of oversight before I went to the museum. So I was very familiar with the operations. And I've just always loved art. I'm not an artist. I'm not an athlete. But I've always loved art. And
Well, that's what it takes, obviously.
Exactly.
Is there anything else you would like our audience to know about the projects or what you're doing?
I think that, I'm hoping Patrick will come back this summer sometime. I think it's really done what I think his goal was, which is it's helped people see all of the public art in Muskegon in a different way. You know, sometimes when you just live somewhere, things just become like, you know, the furniture in the room. You don't notice it anymore. But I think this project has helped elevate kind of an awareness of the public art that we have and the fact that Muskegon is an art town. I don't think that's been part of our DNA, except it has been part of our DNA. It hasn't been part of our consciousness. I think it is now. I mean, I was at the chamber thing last Friday when the moderator asked Cindy Larson, so if you had to sum up Muskegon, what would you say about it? And she said, great art and great outdoors. And it's like,
wonderful.
Exactly.
That's perfect.
I know. And that was a point that I think I've made throughout my career at the Art Museum is that we have phenomenal water, no question about that. Beautiful beaches, but so does everybody along this lake. What everybody does not have, New Buffalo to the bridge, no other city has the art and cultural infrastructure we have. No one else has a symphony, an art museum, a history museum, a historic library, 2 ship museums. Nobody has all those pieces, a civic theater. And we have all of that.
And we have it.
And that's part of what, to me, that makes Muskegon. Pere Marquette does not, and I love Pere Marquette, does not make Muskegon unique. It makes it wonderful, but not unique. Our art and cultural infrastructure absolutely makes this town unique.
Definitely. And we should all be celebrating all those 65 pieces of art and
Absolutely,
all the rest of the culture in the community.
Yeah. So I hope that we get that map thing kind of in the next.
I do too.
That's my goal over the next several months is to finish that up and then figure out the QR code system and then figure out a way to roll that out so that people
get
see
it
that.
out to the public and visitors who come through Muskegon.
Right. Some of the stories, and it's not just, dry art kind of stories. Some of the stories are just kind of fascinating, I think.
Oh, they are.
Behind some of the
Buster
work.
Keaton and Marshfield, all those things are.
Right.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate all this education about arts and culture in Muskegon. And I hope our audience does too. Thank you for being here.
It's fun to share it. Thank you for having me.